Howdy friends, and welcome to the Alt-Country Show. I'm your host, Emily Smith, but I'm not the only host today. This is a special episode. It's a mashup between two podcasts, the Alt-Country Show and Ambient Country, one of my favorite podcasts that is hosted by Bob Holmes from the band SUSS. Also on the show, and the person who curated this playlist, is Stelth Ulvang. Stelth has some incredible solo music. He's got an awesome band with his wife called Heavy Gus, and he's a member of the band the Lumineers. We all got acquainted at the Alt-Country Showcase this year. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. But while these guys are musicians, I'm just a music fan, so I'm fangirling over here. I found out about SUSS because I am a fan of the label Northern Spy. SUSS released music with them. I checked out their music, really liked their sound, bought a couple of their vinyls, became a fan. I got introduced to Stelth recently. I wasn't familiar with his music. I am obsessed with it now. His solo music's incredible. Heavy Gus is so much fun. And I'm even starting to get into the Lumineers, which seems kind of odd. I know they're a really big band, but I never listened to them. And that's not a knock on them. I just live in this like indie music bubble. I've checked out some of their stuff recently and I've been missing out. So big fan of both of these guys. Still not sure why they're letting me be on this show with them, but I'm super excited about it. If you haven't yet subscribed to the Alt-Country Show, I hope to do more episodes kind of like this throughout the year with different curators. And definitely subscribe to Ambient Country, especially if you like what you hear today. I'm going to let Bob take it away.
Hey, this is Bob Holmes from SUSS, and you're listening to episode 26 of Ambient Country, where we explore the wide variety of instrumental music in the genres of new folk, Americana, jazz, ambient, electronic, soundscapes, and cosmic psychedelia. If you've been listening to this podcast, you know that one of my main goals here at Ambient Country is to widen the borders of what is considered both ambient and country. And this episode is no exception. To start with, this episode is kind of a mashup, as it's a dual release as both an ambient country episode and an episode for another one of my favorite podcast series, The Alt-Country Show, hosted by Emily Smith. Her podcast, much like my own, continually is looking to widen the boundaries of Americana music, and she does it beautifully with grace, humor, and intelligence. And if that weren't enough, Emily and I have asked along Stelth Ulvang to come along for the ride. Now, some of you may know Stelth from his alt-country solo releases or his cosmic country band Heavy Gus. But I'm guessing most of you know Stelth as one of the members of the Lumineers. Yep, those guys. One of the biggest recording acts in the world who have broken about every record for live shows and attendance that you can throw at them. So, let's just jump right in and let's hear what everybody has to say. Emily, welcome to Ambient Country.
Well, thank you, Bob. That's a really nice intro there. I'm a huge fan of your band SUSS. I'm a fan of the Ambient Country podcast, so being a part of this is awesome for me. I'm really excited to be here, and I think we've got a really great show today that your audience and my audience are going to enjoy.
Yeah, we'll get into exactly how our paths crossed in a bit, but before I do that, I wanted to welcome the other member of this podcast, my other co-host here, Stelth Ulvang. Stelth, welcome to Ambient Country.
Thank you so much for having me. Stoked to be here.
Yeah, I know you just came off of the road with the Lumineers, and it's early morning your time, so I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with Emily and I. It's going to be a lot of fun.
No problem.
Now, if you're listening to this podcast, you may be wondering how the three of us came together. Emily from the Alt-Country Show, Stelth from his own music and the Lumineers, and myself. And I'm going to let Emily get into the details, but she's to blame for all of this. She brought us all together for her Alt-Country show that she put together during Americana Fest last September at the Meadery, where I think I had some of the strongest honey beer/wine that I've ever had. I'm surprised I can remember anything from that day. It was that wine killed me. But Emily, I'm turning it over to you. How did you make this happen?
Right. So, yeah, I don't remember a lot of it from the mead either. Yeah, it was really good. So I started a podcast called the Alt-Country Show in 2007. I had just finished college. I came from kind of a small town, and I got really involved in the music scene in Gainesville, Florida. And it just made me realize how much incredible music is out there, not just what we hear on the radio and what's kind of like spoon-fed to us. So I wanted to start discovering new music from all the little niche scenes around the world. And I started doing that through this podcast. I was lucky enough to get it picked up by a company based out of New York, and I got to host it for 15 years. And I was offered the opportunity to curate a showcase for Americana Fest. And I jumped on that. And the music industry is kind of, everybody's kind of tied together. So the discovery kept on going as I was curating. I talked to a friend of mine, Tony Presley, who is a music manager, and got hooked up with you, Bob, through Tony.
Yeah.
And Sean Barna was asked to play, and he introduced us to Stelth, and we were stoked to have you come join. I became a huge fan of your work. Both your solo music and your band with your wife are really cool. I think we're going to be playing some music from that a little later in the show. It's just kind of like a testament to how much amazing music is out there, and if you just talk to people about it and go looking for it. So it was a really good time, and I'm glad that we were all brought together and that we can do this episode.
Yeah, it was great. Emily and mine's idea was, okay, let's do a podcast together. Let's introduce the Alt-Country Show fans to Ambient Country, and I wanted to introduce the Ambient Country fans to what's going on at Emily's Alt-Country Show. As if that weren't enough, we decided to bring Stelth along for the ride and leave it up to him to pick the playlist. And we're going to kick it off with the first one from Christine Bougie with a track called I Can Never Remember His Face. Tell us a little bit about Christine, because I've only recently become acquainted with her music.
Yeah, so I think in the vein of what Emily was talking about, setting up the show, I think a lot of this playlist for me has been built on almost, the analog style of meeting people through shows and meeting friends of friends of friends. And I first met Christine. She was playing with the band Bahamas, and a Canadian band. And then she'd played with a few other Canadian bands called the Weather Station, which is a great folk band from Canada, and a country guy named Jeremy Albino, I think. And so she was playing with all these musicians just as a slide player, and it was through that I discovered her solo work. Every sound that she makes on her records is all done with a slide guitar from percussion to melodic to harmonic rhythms and stuff like that. And so it felt like, although I think we get stuck thinking of the country music and being so American centric, but I think it's fun to start it off in one of my favorite kind of Canadian slide players. So yeah, Christine Bougie, I Can Never Remember His Face.
That was Andrew Bird. I think we can all agree that he's one of the superstars of Americana world, and a perfect example of where alt country and ambient country are kind of indistinguishable.
Stelth, have you played with Andrew Bird before? Have you seen him play live?
I just did a solo show with him up in the Owens Valley where I live a few months ago. And Lumineers had done a tour with him as well. It was one of the only tours that we had done where we, I think, would kind of kowtow every time he would come off stage opening for us. And we were baffled that we could get, that he was thrilled to do the opening slot for us. But we ask our heroes, and for the most of the time, it doesn't seem like anyone wants to be, in that kind of position. But he filled the position so well and kind of catered to our set of kind of newer pop Americana tweens. With his album, it was right before My Finest Work Yet, I think was the name of his record, but there was such a good pop sensibility to his music if he wants it. And he can play about every genre in the world, and does. But still, his work that he's done solo, including that track Rising Water, where he did a lot of recordings over the pandemic just under bridges and in canyons and near rivers. That was just him whistling and playing violin. And I think it's some of the most extraordinary music that he's made. And it definitely falls within, I think, the ambient world of, the slow growth, and especially imagining him just standing in a canyon recording alone.
Yeah.
Nothing like it.
That's beautiful. So, Emily, do you want to introduce these next couple songs?
Yeah. So thank you, Stelth, for including Andrew Bird on the set list. We're excited to move on to some new ones here. The first is from Paul DeHaven, called Bad Peach Nap, The Angriest Squirrel. And the one after that is from Chaz Knapp, a track called To Mend a Heart with Gold. These are both new artists to me, and I'm becoming a huge fan. That's kind of the theme of the show. I think there's only about 5 artists on the playlist that I was familiar with, which is great. This is what I love doing, and I love finding new music. So I'm really enjoying all these new artists, and big fan of these too.
Are these friends of yours? Because I noticed that some of these, at least it looked like Paul was from Colorado.
Yeah, so I should say, I started first playing accordion following Paul's band Paper Bird, that was a Colorado-based band, through the 2010s. And now he plays in this extraordinary kind of alt-country band called Heavy Diamond Ring.
Yeah.
And
I know them.
He's put out a record, also similarly, almost any genre. And the thing is, him and this guy, the Chaz Knapp song is doubled with a guy named Lake Mary, whose name is also Chaz. So he goes by the moniker to prevent the confusion. But they have a cabin up in the woods of Evergreen, Colorado, and they've done a lot of sound recording together, and do a lot of ambient music. I think just stuck up there in the winters. They'd lived up there for a long time. Paul had lived there for about a decade before moving to Santa Fe, New Mexico. So yeah, they're both better friends, but play all around the world, have recorded with a lot of really, really great people, talented guitarists. And so yeah, this was, I think, the only case on this playlist that I've specifically tried to put some friends on, but doesn't change the regard that I have for them as musicians. So.
Stelth, are you originally from Colorado and live now in LA, or what's your?
I am born and raised in Colorado, but I live now up in the Owens Valley, up outside of Los Angeles, in Bishop, California, which is about 4 hours away. It's high desert. I live across from some horses. I'm sure you can see the wood paneling.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. In
the back here, got a wood burning stove, but it's all kind of cabin life, even for being a small town, about 3,000 people. And I think, yeah, the setting and the place of where I live now, I think, has added a lot to my exploration of this kind of music on both sides. And even, yeah, this original playlist I titled A Walk Through the Sagebrush. because it really was me. Yeah, I'll walk out into the desert in the morning where I walk my dog near this river, and it's just tall, sagebrush as tall as I am, and the smells of there's these wasps that they implant their eggs in the sagebrush, and you can crush up the egg pods that are kind of little growths on the sage, and it smells like juicy fruit gum. And I don't know, there's no way to describe it, but I love it here for now, and so I'm enjoying living outside of a city and I've been here about 5 years.
So we're going to listen to Bad Peach Nap, otherwise known as The Angriest Squirrel, from Paul DeHaven, and that's going to be followed up by To Mend a Heart with Gold by Chaz Knapp. Great. That was To Mend a Heart with Gold by Chaz Knapp. But now we're going to jump into two artists that we've played a lot here on Ambient Country Podcast, Marissa Anderson and Walt McClements. Emily, were these two artists that you were familiar with or weren't familiar with? Because if not, it's time to jump on that bandwagon for those artists.
I'm embarrassed to say that I was not familiar with them. I did hear them on Ambient Country and then through Stelth's playlist, and becoming a fan. I've got a lot of music that I need to include on the Alt-Country show in 2024 now.
So here we are. We're going to play Marissa Anderson's track, Waltz of Shadows, and then we're going to follow that up with Walt McClements' track, Climb, in parentheses, 2 times past the same point in 2 hours. Two really amazing tracks. Yeah.
Did you put the two Waltz there on purpose?
Oh, I guess I did. Yeah.
The Waltz and the Walt, the Walt and the Walt.
Waltz and Walt.
Sorry to confuse the listeners.
Oh no, that's pretty good. I like that. That went right past me. You're working at a different level than I am, Stelth. That's for sure. you play accordion, right, Stelth? Is that true?
Yes.
So Walt McClements, I take it you've seen Walt McClements play this kind of music live?
Yes, in a few of his bands, and this project I've only seen once. I've seen more of his other bands that he's played with prior, Dark, 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 and Why Are We Building Such a Big Ship from New Orleans. But Walt is one of the most extraordinary musicians in any sense that I've known, and also what a nice guy to have met him. But I'm a little bit of a fanboy of him too, so I always have tripped over my words in my introductions with him, because as an accordion player, I really look up to his playing and his the sounds he can make.
And he's a serial collaborator. He collaborates with a lot of different artists in a lot of different styles, and it's pretty amazing. And the same could be said for Marissa Anderson. She's wherever you turn, she's playing with some new artists with a slightly different style of music, but really an amazing guitar player. Okay, so we're going to jump into some new music here. Well, at least new music for me. Fubusushi, and then it's one of those artists that's in a way that's kind of like a super group filled with all these people. I think we've already mentioned one of the artists already. Stelth, tell me more about it.
Yeah, I've never seen them perform. As I think it's a super group idea. My understanding is they all live in different places, and I know the violinist pretty well from Colorado. He's played with a lot of people. He just did a tour with Nathaniel Rateliff, the violinist on that Fubusushi track, and then I know that another guy plays with Walt McClements quite often. I've seen, and Lake Mary, who I mentioned, who did the Chaz Knapp track, he's played with him, and then the last guy, Matt Sage, is a Fort Collins-based musician that now lives in Chicago. So it is a lot of people, some ties to Colorado there, but this record got a lot of steam over the pandemic. I think people fortunately were able to slow down a bit in their interests, and I'm sure you've noticed too that I think the draw towards ambient and ambient country music probably broadened, and more people discovered it over that time. It was maybe one of the blessings and the curse of the pandemic, I think, is the forced reckoning with our own all this time, and so yeah, that's at least how I discovered it. Is a lot of music just where I had the space to listen to new stuff.
The pandemic comes up a lot in all the interviews we have on this show as sort of a turning point. It allowed musicians to maybe take a left turn in the kind of music that they were making and do something a little different than before, because they were forced to make music in a different way because of the pandemic. They knew in many cases they didn't have to go out on the road, or they couldn't even go out on the road to support it. So that made a whole different equation for them. And then their fans and being stuck at home were forced into two situations. One, they needed background music to help them get through the day, whether it was studying at home or working at home or just taking care of the family at home. And then there was many moments for a lot of them, like what you just mentioned, where they just had to chill out and do some deep listening. And so ambient music, instrumental music in general, and sometimes I hate to use the term ambient because it sounds a little bit too hoity-toity, because a lot of the music you picked here, the artists wouldn't consider themselves ambient, but they are instrumental. And though they don't consider themselves ambient, they do, each and every one of them creates a mood, a place that you just want to step inside of and live in for a while. And to me, that's what ambience is about. And that's when I use the term ambient country, it's not because everything is ambient or anything has to do with country. It's just, it's stepping into a landscape or something, a room, an environment that an artist has created, and you decide you're going to live there for a while. And definitely Fubusushi has created that. You know, sometimes it's almost jazzy, sometimes it sounds a little bit new agey to me. and but whoa, it's really excellent. Emily, did you know anything about this act?
No, I didn't. This was another new one to me.
Cool. So let's play the track, A Brush with Reality from Fubutsushi, and then we're going to follow that up with A Glimpse from a Long Forgotten Time by Bruce Licker, who goes by the moniker Scenic. this was a demo for a song. Did the demo turn out to be the song, or is this an early version of another song that's out there?
Great question. That I think we find ourselves liking demos more than the proper recordings. We all as musicians, and I couldn't find kind of the double of this, but Bruce Licker, who lives in Bishop here in town, I've discovered his mass catalog of music through maybe 4 or 5 different projects, and so it's very possible that these songs double up in other. I've seen them under different names and monikers. So he, I think, also is guilty of taking a lot from the setting here in the Owens Valley and how that translates into his music. So, and I don't know if now is a good time to mention it, but for me, when I was thinking of this playlist, it was unfounding intrigue, I guess, to how many bands apply the use of drone in their music, and how much I realized, I think, the sound, like drone, comes from so many traditional country instruments, being pedal steels, from accordion, from and even some of these tracks that I've seen on the Alt-Country playlist before. Some of these musicians, Nick Shoulders, for example, at his live shows, will talk a lot about Appalachian drone and Appalachian jaw harp and stuff, and from also Walt McClements, the use of accordion and drone music. I think a lot of we forget how much, I think, ambience and landscape, for example, in music comes through in country music and older country music, and I do think though it's taken this long to put, say, the two of y'all's genres together, how much they're always in the aiding and kind of cycling into each other.
Yeah, that's really well put. When SUSS got started up, I said the same thing that you said, Stelth. I said, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of the same musical devices are being used in old country music as there are in ambient music. And is it possible that we could graph them together? And so we've been trying to do that for the last 5 or so years. So.
I love that Nick Shoulders track you picked, and I was really glad you picked it. I'm a fan of the jaw harp. I think we need more jaw harp. That was an instrument I picked up during the pandemic. You needed new things to do. Yeah. So I got me a jaw harp.
I think to end this podcast, in 6 months, we're going to come out with a release with the 3 of us.
Okay. I'm going to play the jaw harp.
Record something, the 3 of us, and you can play the jaw harp. I think that'll be important.
Yes.
So.
Okay.
Okay. At the top of the show, I promised you some surprises, and Stelth has not let us down. I realize that traditionally this podcast is focused on instrumental music, but being the fact that I'm doing this with Emily and the Alt-Country show, you got to have some vocal tracks. For my fans out there, hold on to your hat, because we're going to go into slightly new territory. And I say slightly because this next track that we're going to listen to by one of my all-time friggin' favorite bands, the Mojave 3. And when the very first episode of this podcast, I was still trying to figure things out. I'm still trying to figure things out, to be honest. I had to put Mojave 3 on there. So when Stelth came back with a playlist with another Mojave 3 track, it just brightened my heart. Thank you for putting this on the playlist.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan. I know if we listen to a track of my band, Heavy Gus, that I do with my wife, I think you'll see the obvious influence that we have from Mojave 3, and wanting to kind of pick up where they left off in a way.
We're going to play Mojave 3 and the track Tomorrow's Taken, followed up by Stelth's band, Stelth and his wife's band, Heavy Gus, with a track called Dinner for Breakfast.
There's a fire in the sky, it makes me glad. gonna keep them. By the time you call, I'm already asleep in by the time I wake, you're gone. You're on the road having fun and feeling reckless. I'm making dinner, then I'll eat it for my breakfast. And dinner once again. I'll be your queen, I'll be your boy. Just call me, call me yours. Much coffee as I navigate the changes. Here in this valley between two mountain ranges. I start to feel it.
I'm so glad to hear that you, in some way, you feel that Heavy Gus kind of takes up the banner, because I could tell it right off the bat, and I loved it. I just love it. That I take it that's your wife lead singing, and her voice just slays me. It's just beautiful.
That is my wife, Dorota Shuta, that's singing on the Heavy Gus track, yeah.
Do you tour around with Heavy Gus when you have time to tour?
Yeah, we have a little bit. You know, this is our first record, and we're going to be recording a second record in a few months, probably back in Nashville, where we recorded that first one. Similarly, we'll play a few shows, I think, when we're around there, so we'll holler. But yeah, so I think it was fun for us to kind of have created this alternative rock record in a way, this kind of desert surf record, but the whole record in itself has a lot of country influence on it, from these Nashville tuning guitars that we throw on it to a lot of pedal steel and lap steel that's on the record. And I think we were excited to kind of blend the two worlds of what felt like a surf record with country music.
It's a perfect blend. Cool. All right. Well, I wasn't going to let Stelth get away without us playing at least one of his tracks. And I have to say that this track we're going to play is the most creative use of apple eating that I think I've heard of in any record to date. I'm assuming the track that we're going to play, Take Time, that's you chomping into an apple there? Is that what it is?
Yes, that entire album from that release, Take Time, was recorded on my cell phone. So every bit was just recorded through a cell phone from all the instruments, and then the beats I made on the cell phone, and then I only put it out for a while on cassette tape. So it felt like it was just a little joke that I had with myself that I used the most digital method to put out the most analog release. And I don't know if I'll do it again. I'd like to actually properly get a 4-track sometime and try my hand at recording by myself to tape. I'm sitting on 3 solo records right now of my own stuff, or 2 solo records and an EP. But I recorded a full record down in New Orleans with a lot of the crew from the Deslons, who I think, Emily, you've played. And
yes.
Sam Doors, and a lot of musicians from New Orleans. And so that's a proper, I would say, if anything I've ever made is entirely alt-country, it's going to be that record.
Oh, cool.
I don't know, Stelth, I don't know where you find the time to do all this, because I know that you're on the road a lot, so you have an endless amount of energy, because I know you don't have an endless amount of time. So.
Well, that's just it. While I'm on the road, say we play 4 shows a week, those other 3 days, if they're back to back, sometimes in a town, I'll try to find a studio And so all 3 of the albums that are kind of floating around right now were recorded in different places around the U.S. One in New Orleans. When we were just passing through, I'd pop through New Orleans and record a couple tracks at a time. And one up in upstate New York near Rochester, and another in Cincinnati.
Before we head out of here, let's take a listen to Stelth's, the title track of Stelth's latest album, Take Time.
Think about it, how it feels to break our bones. If you don't see it, they don't say it. Is it easier just left alone? Find a place where you can hide for days. Don't mean nothing, shouting of him, waiting for the greatest.
Well, let's wrap this baby up. Emily, thanks again for helping out on this episode of Ambient Country, and thanks for introducing me to all of your fans at the Alt-Country Show.
Absolutely. Big thanks to you as well. I'm so excited I got to be a part of this episode. And on my show, I always want to tell everybody to find an artist in the mix that you love and go buy something from them. Buy an album, buy merch, see if they're coming to a city near you, go see a show. Streaming's wonderful. It's a great way to find new music, but it does not support artists. And that's something that's really important to me, is supporting music and supporting artists. Nobody's trying to get rich off this. Most people just want to be able to record their next album. And you supporting one artist on the show today could make that happen.
Emily, that's what I could not have said it better. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here. And Stelth, it was so great to be able to meet you and spend time with you and listen to music through your ears. I hope we get to meet again in the flesh. It'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bob.
We'll
Thank you,
redo
Emily.
the
Pleasure to meet you
Alt-Country
both.
show this year. We'll have to do the showcase again, and SUSS will have to play, and Heavy Gus will have to play.
Yeah, and then our new combo with the lead jaw harp. And yeah, everybody, thanks again for being on Ambient Country.
Well, thank you for the support in the arts and the music and what you had said too. I appreciate that, and thank you for having me as well.
Have a great day.
Talk soon.
Well, I guess that wraps up another great episode. Thanks again to Emily and Stelth for taking us to some brand new places. And don't forget what Emily said about supporting these artists. It's really important. So, once again, this is Bob Holmes from SUSS, and thanks for listening to Ambient Country.